little over a month ago, my friend Brad over at Bloody Disgusting posted on Twitter that he heard there was going to be a scene featuring the Haddonfield Memorial Hospital in Halloween Kills. Over this past weekend, that rumor was confirmed when a bunch of photos of a hospital in Wilmington all done up to look like Haddonfield Memorial Hospital leaked online. You might have noticed over the past couple weeks that I've been skipping over some of the bigger leaks that have come out of the set because they kind of feel really spoilery, but since this one was posted on Ryan Turek's Instagram, I'm considering it fair game. And judging by the fact that there's two police cars sitting outside the hospital that don't look like they're from the 70s, I'm gonna go ahead and assume whatever scene that hospital is featured in is gonna take place during the modern day. And interestingly, the Halloween movie's official Twitter account shared a less cropped version of the same picture that also shows an ambulance. And very interestingly, a guy named Sean O'Rourke posted on his Instagram a different picture of the same ambulance, but this time sitting at a stoplight. And if you look really close at the back of it, you can see the HMH badge from Halloween 2, which makes me so happy. And if you watched Stranger Things 3 earlier this summer, you probably noticed that it's also the Hawkins Memorial Hospital logo as well. Okay, so knowing that the scene takes place in the modern day, there's really only two people who could be going to the hospital after the end of Halloween 2018. Of course, the first option is Laurie Strode, who took a pretty gnarly stab wound at the end of last year's movie. So once she gets into the pickup truck, it does look like she's fading out of consciousness, which makes sense because I think that shot was included in the original ending that they showed at a test screening, then went back to reshoot. She was originally supposed to die in Halloween 2018. So what I'm thinking could happen there is that the movie will pick up at the very end of Halloween 2018, and we'll see that pickup truck take her to the hospital where she'll probably meet Tommy Doyle. I feel like if she goes to the hospital at the end of that movie, it kind of confirms my theory about him being a doctor there. There's really no evidence for that, I just kind of feel like that's what's gonna happen. But there is another option that I haven't really considered yet, because they went through a lot of work to make that ambulance look like the ambulance in Halloween 4. It got me thinking, what if Michael Myers is also being taken to the hospital? I mean, think about it. He might not be able to escape the basement of Laurie's house, and they were also casting for firefighters. So what if the firefighters find him in the rubble, smoking and smoldering in a pile of ash, charging up for the next Halloween? Putting him in an ambulance that looks like the one from Halloween 4 would be a pretty dope callback to one of my favorite kills in the entire franchise, when he digs his thumb through the middle of that guy's forehead and into his brain, killing him instantly. It's an awesome kill. It's one of the most inventive in the entire franchise for sure. I mean, seeing him loaded into the back of an ambulance with his mask slightly fused to his face, still smoking a little bit from being pulled out of the ashes, that just sounds really cool to me. And then I'm assuming that once he does get to the hospital, he'll remain in a coma for a year or two while he heals up, just so they can keep the timeline current with 2020's release date. And then of course on Halloween 2020, he'll wake up and go back out into Haddonfield and kill even more people. I'm not entirely sure that would ever happen, but there is a little bit of evidence to back it up thanks to an Instagram account I follow called Mike Myers. He posted a blurb that's actually from the premise section on Halloween Kills Instagram, which is weird that no one's ever noticed that yet because I think it's been there for a while. It says exactly 2 years after the events of the last film, Laurie Strode, now trying to have a life with her daughter Karen and her granddaughter Allison, returns home to Haddonfield. Unfortunately, on a Halloween night, Laurie's appearance also brings about the return of Michael Myers, putting Laurie, Karen, and Allison, along with Allison's friends and the whole town of Haddonfield, in danger. At the end of Halloween 2018, there is no way Laurie doesn't think Michael is dead. I mean, having a burning house fall on top of you while you're in the basement is a pretty definitive way to go. And then you have to consider that Karen and Allison also lost Ray, who's Karen's husband and Allison's dad. So the idea of all three of them moving out of Haddonfield to start a new life and finally be happy doesn't seem too crazy to me. And it also doesn't seem too crazy that the sheriff of Haddonfield would kind of keep the information that Michael is alive from them, because he probably wants them to live a happy life too. I mean, Michael's in a coma after all. There's no way he'll wake up, right? A good way to kick off Halloween Kills would be to show Laurie living a happy life, only to find out that Michael is in fact still alive, albeit in a coma, so then she could go back to Haddonfield around Halloween and finally do the job and kill him for good. Of course, she won't make it in time and Michael will wake up and go out on yet another Halloween killing. And while that does sound pretty cool to me, there are a few things in this blurb that lead me to believe it might be fake. First, I plugged it into Google a million different ways, and even though it's attributed to Universal Pictures on the Wikipedia page, there's no source there, and there's nowhere else on the internet that has that actual plot synopsis. Second, the grammar and syntax on a few of the sentences are actually pretty bad, specifically on the part that says on a Halloween night. Like, I don't think that would actually end up in an official plot synopsis. And finally, the last time I checked, there's no closing quotation marks on the entire chunk. Regardless, no matter what happens in the hospital scene, I'm glad we're going to be seeing it coming back. That's because even though Halloween 2 was cut from the timeline, they're referencing it in their own Halloween 2, and I think that's pretty cool. I like all these small nods they're giving to the Halloween movies that were cut out of the franchise for Halloween 2018. Now I know the cynical way to look at it is to say it's nostalgia bait, but the way I see it is that they're acknowledging those movies kept the franchise alive for the past 4 decades, so they're sort of paying respect to them by including these little scenes that feature Easter eggs. I mean, yeah, the Halloween movies have had their ups and downs over the past few decades, but there's a reason we all still love Michael Myers. So in my opinion, it's pretty cool that they're giving nods to these movies even if they aren't in the official timeline. And even though we've seen it before in Halloween 2 and Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 via a flashback, the idea of Michael slowly stalking his way through the hospital and picking off the few workers who remain overnight is just awesome. I really want to see that again through the modern light of Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills. Like, for all its story problems, that's one thing The Void got right a couple years back. I also think it's great that we're going to see even more of Haddonfield. We did get a pretty good look at it in last year's movie, but 2 of the most prominent scenes where Allison goes out a run and sees the hanging dog, and when Cameron gets in a fight with her on the football field, were cut from the movie. So any more scenes we get where we get to see this city, this Midwestern town in the middle of Halloween, which is when they're filming it, is just like icing on the cake in my book. That's exactly what I want to see. So that's all I have for you on Halloween Kills today. If you want even more Halloween stuff from me, go follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Jimmy Champane. I'm also working on the next episode of Exploring Horror. In the last video, I said I was doing it on Haunt, but I actually can't find a copy legally that I can cut up, so I'm switching gears and covering a movie that I kind of missed last year with the prequel to Exploring Horror, which I called One Good Scare. If you go watch that playlist, you're gonna notice a movie's missing, so that's your hint. Anyway guys, my name is Jimmy Champane, and I'll see you in the next one. Shape on.